Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
Good to meet you. Great pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Me too.
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt.
我肯定我们今天会有非常成功的会议。
But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good.
但是他是很强硬的谈判者哦，这不好。
We know each other well. So he's here, and he's got about 6 people on each side, and every one of those people was standing like this. They were at attention. And I made a comment to one of them, and I got no response. I said, are you going to answer me? I got no response. And President Xi didn't let him have any. So if there's any question, I said, I want my cabinet to behave like that. That's the way. I'm demanding that I want them sitting up like that, Tim, just nice and straight. I never saw posture like that. I've never seen men so scared in their lives. They have the equivalent of a vice president. He was. I said, are you going to answer my question? And he's like, he doesn't move. I said, what's wrong with this guy? I will answer all questions. Why don't you behave like that? JD doesn't behave like that. JD buds into conversations. I want to have that for at least a couple of days, okay, JD? We'll keep you long term, but a couple of days of that would be very, very nice.
Yes, sir.
And so I want to thank President Xi. We had a great meeting. We were in South Korea, and I went to a lot of other places too, but we met in South Korea, and President Xi was great. And China gave us among the largest orders in the history of your world, agriculture.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Since my successful meeting in South Korea with President Xi, purchases have been made and soybeans are being exported out of the United States to China as we speak. And I say that our soybeans, I told this to President Xi, our soybeans are more nutritious than competitors. Somebody said, is that a Trump statement or is that real? In fact, you know who asked me that question? President Xi asked me that question. He said, really, I had never heard of it.
Timetable for these first 2 ships, and do you see them as a counter to China?
We're going to start almost immediately, and we'll probably talk in about 2.5 years.
In terms of the mission, do you see it as a counter to China?
It's a counter to everybody. It's not China. We get along great with China. I have a great relationship with President Xi, and not China. It's just everybody. You don't know who comes along.
On China, so China has been doing naval exercises basically to test encircling Taiwan. Can you explain to us what your knowledge is of that? What do you think about that? Have you had any discussions with China?
Well, I have a great
that?
relationship with President Xi, and he hasn't told me anything about it. I certainly have seen it, but he hasn't told me anything about it, and I don't believe he's going to be doing it.
Does it worry you?
No, nothing worries me.
But
Nothing.
you said where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So if you're if you're doing naval exercises and air
Well,
exercises,
they've been doing naval exercises for 20 years in that area. Now people take it a little bit differently, but in fact larger than they're doing right now. So we'll see. But they've been doing that for 20, 25 years. Yeah.
And separately, Mr. President, I'm curious in terms of the future of Venezuela. Do you see Venezuela, now led by Delcy Rodriguez, as an ally of the U.S.? Is that the way that you view that country
well,
right
now? Well, right now they seem to be an ally, and I think it'll continue to be an ally. And we don't want to have Russia there. We don't want to have China there. And by the way, we don't want Russia or China going to Greenland, which if we don't take Greenland, you're going to have Russia or China as your next door neighbor. That's not going to happen.
How much money?
You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? A case brought about by people that are China-centric, foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China, would you ever believe you'd hear that? And they've been great. My relationship with President Xi has been great, but we have a group that's foreign-centric, China-centric, suing, and we'll figure something out if we don't win, but we should win. I mean, we should win.
Thursday will be the 6-year anniversary of you signing the Phase 1 trade deal with China, the signature on it. would that deal open Chinese markets to U.S. goods? It protected intellectual property. Can we get back to that?
Yeah, we can. We're doing very well with China. Have a great relationship with President Xi, as you obviously know. We're doing really well. We're making a lot of money with China.
Can you open their markets to U.S. goods?
I think so, yeah. I think it's going to happen.
What do you think about the UK getting into business with China? Keir Starmer was in Beijing.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China. Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer. I know China very well. I know President Xi is a friend of mine. I know him very well, but that's a big hurdle to go over when you get Canada. The first thing they're going to do is say you're not allowed to play ice hockey anymore. That's not good. Canada's not going to play.
President Xi, in your talk with him recently, warned about sending more weapons to Taiwan. What was your response to him? Are you going to send more weapons to Taiwan?
I have a response. I'm talking to him about it. We had a good conversation, and we'll make a determination pretty soon.
Tell us about your trip.
We have a very good relationship with President Xi. In fact, I'll be going, I guess, in April. Putin have a very good relationship with President Xi. I'm going to be going to China in April. That's going to be a wild one. I said, but we have to put on the biggest display you've ever had in the history of China. You know, last time I went to China, President Xi, he treated me so well. He gave me a display. I never saw so many soldiers all the same height, exactly the same height within a quarter of an inch. You can do that when you have 1.4 billion people. You know, lots of shoulders. Everybody was within about 1/8 of an inch the same height. I said, if they put their helmets down, you could have played pool on the top of their heads. And it was pretty amazing. But I said, you got to top it. He said, I'll top it. We're going to top it. We're going to have a lot of the people, most of the fake news back there is going to be going.
The ship that was captured on Monday, you said there was a gift for the Iranians in it. What was that in that ship? The one from China?
Yeah, well, we have, that's very top secret. Yeah, there was some in there, but it's top secret.
Have you talked to President Xi about it? Have you talked to Xi about it?
That's one of those little questions where, oh, this is not good. We have auto plants being built all over the country, AI plants we're doing, and we're leading China in AI. And I'm going to go see President Xi in 2 weeks. I look forward to that, but I'll say I'm leading. We have very friendly competition. But it'll be a very important trip.
Next week, you have a very important meeting with President Xi in Beijing. Secretary Bessent has said that a top priority on the agenda will be Iran. What do you hope to achieve with President Xi as it relates to Iran?
Well, I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I find him to be a tremendous guy, and we get along well, and you see how we do. We're doing a lot of business with China and making a lot of money. We're making a lot of money. It's different than it used to be. But I'll be talking about that. That'll be one subject. But he's been very nice about this. You know, in all fairness, he gets like 60% of his oil from Hormuz, and I think he's been very respectful. We haven't been challenged by China. They don't challenge us, and he wouldn't do that. I don't think he'd do that because of me. But I think he's been very respectful.
Hope to get out of the summit in China, and how much has the war in Iran changed the agenda?
Look, I have a great relationship with President Xi. We're doing a lot of business, but it's smart business. We used to be taken advantage of for years with our previous presidents, and now we're doing great with China. We make a lot of money with China. I have a great relationship with President Xi, and I think you can see that with the fact that in Hormuz, they get a big percentage, 40% of their oil from Hormuz. There's been no ships coming in, no nasty ships coming in that we end up in skirmishes with. He'd like to see it get done. He doesn't want to see, I'll tell you what, look, I respect him a lot, and hopefully he respects me. He didn't respect our previous government, that I can tell you. The guy couldn't talk. It was ridiculous how that ever happened.
Jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download MetroTV Extend sekarang.